starting it off, we have a conversation about something that is going to change massively in California in the next 4 days. Can you tell us about it, Rob?
I think, okay, as we all know, we passed a proposition to make weed, marijuana, legal in California. And it's happened in other states. It's happened in Oregon, Washington, D.C., Nevada recently. And we are going through the nuts and bolts of how much are you legally allowed to possess, what's the age, driving while impaired, how does that get figured out. There are certain things that need to be ironed out quickly and need to be ironclad. But what was interesting to me is some of the abstract things that I think are going to change beginning on Monday. I mean, we're talking about marijuana being legal in the 6th largest economy in the world. This will be the biggest legal marijuana market in the world.
That's incredible.
And so this is going to be basically the center of marijuana in the world for the next probably 3 to 4 years.
And what does that mean for us,
Till many other states see what kind of cash we're raking in, and then it'll be big time everywhere.
Well, that's what people hope, I think. Or
exactly.
at least some.
And so what tipped me off to the, like, okay, maybe there's more going on to this, because I think probably it aligns with maybe 2 camps right now. One, you're into it and you can't wait for it to just be legal and not a hassle anymore, or that's just not your thing. Okay, I personally would say it's not my thing. It never has been my thing. I don't really care one way or the other. However, since I live in California and I was born and raised in California, I am interested in all these other things that we're maybe not giving enough attention to. And for example, my friend is in the winemaking business, and he said, you know what? There are people buying acreage in the San Ynez Valley because they want to grow marijuana there.
Prime real estate.
Because he said with such a new product coming out, it's all about the marketing. And he's got friends in the marketing business, and they said they're all lined up ready to go, because it's not just marijuana. This is going to be marijuana for gamers, marijuana for yoga moms, marijuana for the whole medical aspect of it. Exactly. And so, and with that comes, you know, he's in the wine industry. It's all marketing in the wine industry, at least to get the product into people's hands, and then hopefully they like it. So it's this will soak up the California sunshine in the thing. So it all starts to turn into this huge thing that now if you have a crop that needs acreage, your price is probably about to go up. And I saw this thing with the LA Times that they think that cash-wise, it will probably eclipse pistachios and almonds. And maybe even the dairy industry in California by 2020. Folks, that's within just a couple of years. And if you think about happy cows live in California, cheese and dairy, I mean, these are...
Now these cows are happier.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm so curious in all of the other abstract things that are going to change culturally, industry-wise, trend-setting, all of these things, and how this all relates, because it's one of these things where I think we quietly have known it's been happening over time, this shift, but it will change in an instant on Monday. And what happens after that, some things we know, some things we don't know. It's just utterly fascinating to me.
It's incredible to me.
Yeah, I think, Rob, you make good points. I think it's hot right now, and in the short term, you will see people going, okay, I'm going to tear out my wine grapes and I'm going to put in marijuana. But as it grows, literally, throughout the state, that the competition will kind of overwhelm and then other states, so that would come back. I know I mean, we have a lot of commodities. This happened, 10 years ago, 12 years ago. A lot of the Delta farmers were taking out some of their pear trees and going with the wine grapes because that was hot. So different commodities come and go in terms of how hot they are. And right now, if you want ground and you want to grow marijuana, it's hot. But that competition, I think, will, in the next year or two, make that less. And then people may go, you know what, I shouldn't have torn out my wine grapes. Because every farm is already converted, and now there's a shortage of wine grapes.
See, there's a big difference here, because we are not benefiting from those commodities. We stand to benefit economically from the development of weed farms, if you want to call them that.
Well, no, they definitely, like, if it's developed ag land, it comes back to the citizens of California.
But not in their wallets as in the form of a tax return the way it has in Colorado. My uncle lives there, and he said he didn't care one way or the other before weed was legalized. However, seeing how it's benefited the education system in Colorado, he said, you know what? Why wouldn't more cities and more states want to legalize marijuana in order to reap that benefit?
Yeah, and the tax is huge. it's like 20-30% off the bat, and then cities can charge on top of that as well.
Exactly.
So it's not going to be a cheap thing. And then that's another abstract thing I was thinking about. If you have 2 bags of weed sitting in front of you, one's legal, one and going to be taxed in the store, the other one. Yeah, I mean, so there might even be a growth of under the table stuff happening
of course there
as
is.
well. So
there's
just so many things going on. And you know, here's another thing too. In Mexico, we all know about the history of the cartels, and how they've grown. It all started with marijuana initially. Now it's in all sorts of other things, money laundering, extortion, you name it, right? But still remaining one of the key components of how that is able to function in Mexico and how the cartels are able to hold power over the people that live there is the influence of drug trafficking, namely marijuana, over the border. And that all changes when California is now the biggest legal weed market. So you have to understand that what happens in California could have international impacts as well. I mean, I think it's such a groundbreaking, profound paradigm shift within one day that I just, again, it's just amazing to me. I would love to know if we're thinking of things, if we're exagerating things, if people think I'm crazy.
I think it may still come through Mexico. It will just be a lower price. They have to get a price point that will compete with our legal. Now, our legal marijuana in our state is supposed to be safer because if you're buying illegal marijuana, the state would have you believe that there may be pesticides, there may be things in it that could harm you. But if you buy the U.S. seal, the California stamp on it, you know that it's likely been tested or whatever, and it's clean and safe for you to enjoy as much as you'd like. So
I liked what you were saying about marketing and how you can buy into this idea of the type of weed that you're going to purchase. There's value to that. So yes, one might be cheaper, but isn't that what business is all about, where you pay more money for a better experience? I think that can easily upgrade the market of weed in this country, and maybe it'll help people see that cartels in Mexico could be waned off. Hopefully,
that's the hope, I think.
We have some people in California who have already started prepping
what
for
does
this
that
shift.
mean? Prepping for it.
I'm trying to find the comment, but somebody already said she started an online weed hub.
There you go.
An online purchasing center. Then Janet Piper says, I'm all for medical marijuana, but it's heartbreaking for me to think about my grandchildren growing up with recreational marijuana around available on every corner.
Right. So then, that's another thing too. So I've got a parent with really young kids. You're a parent with kids. This is an interesting topic. You know, the conversations you always kind of worry about are, sex education. That's a thing that's going to come up one day. I don't know. You just handle it.
Your wife will handle it for you.
Exactly. And other things that you have serious conversations with your kids. This is another one, a conversation that everyone's going to start having pretty soon, because if you've got teenagers at home, here's the reality is that all of these drugs, legal or not, that are out there, people use them, for a reason. There's something that they're getting out of it. But also, there's a lot of people that doesn't function well with their productivity and getting things done.
But see, that's the same thing with alcohol, in my opinion.
It's the same thing with alcohol.
And we have to look to Europe for this one, in my opinion. They start their kids off drinking just a teeny bit of wine at dinner as they're growing up, 12, 13, so that when they become of legal age to drink, it's not this novelty.
Right.
It's got to be the same way with marijuana. Now, I'm not suggesting that we start letting our kids smoke at a younger age, but it all comes with a talk about responsibility and what that does for you as a parent. And that's a conversation you have to have at the home. But here's one thing that I found that blew my mind. Pregnant women these days, the rate of them using marijuana to make their morning sickness go away and to reduce their anxiety is up. It's 4.2% in 2009 to 7.1% this year.
That's
in the
interesting.
state of California.
Right.
But what does that mean for the children being born
Correct.
from mothers that have been smoking marijuana?
Right.
How does that affect children?
There's a long track record of alcohol being not good for forming babies.
Right.
That's well known and researched, and there's lots of data to back that up, hence all the warnings that are put out there.
Right.
Correct.
I don't know if the research, because doing this is kind of a difficult thing to research because it's been illegal.
Right.
So getting people to admit that, number one, smoking marijuana while pregnant, it would be a difficult thing just to get your base core group that you want to test.
Right.
And then charting the after effects, it would be difficult as well. So I think we're going to learn a lot about this in the future.
Yeah, I did some digging on this one.
Okay.
And nationally, over the last 20 years, we've seen an uptick of 17% with women using marijuana during their pregnancies. So at this point, there have to be children. There are many children that have been born from mothers that have been smoking weed. And so the studies from the CDC can't be too far in the distance.
I think it's like, okay, what does pregnant moms smoking weed mean? Does it mean that when they have morning sickness, which is occasional, they take one hit and they're done? So it's a limited amount of THC coming into the system, or are they sitting around just blowing the J all day? Now, I don't know. See, what is the use here in this?
We have a good soundbite from a woman from San Antonio, Texas, who said for her last 4 pregnancies, she smoked marijuana, and her kids seemed to be fine. So, Chrissy, if we could roll that, that would be...
I've never thrown up like that before in my life. And all 4 of my pregnancies were like that. Help, my nausea, it went away completely, and I was actually able to eat. They were born fine. The only thing is I had C-sections. That was it, but there were no birth defects. People that disagree on it, they've never probably smoked before. I believe that marijuana is a medicine. I don't think it's a drug.
Well, I can see that, and when she said my kids were born with no birth defects, I wasn't assuming that marijuana use or limited marijuana use by a pregnant mom would cause birth defects. I hadn't even thought of that. I just thought, okay, maybe there would be some type of, untraceable thing. It's because pregnant women who are using heavy doses of meth and other things. Now we're talking some electrical problems with the kids.
Electrical problems.
Well, you're talking about different things that could go wrong with our whole structure. But like I said, what does marijuana use by pregnant women mean in terms of dosage and daily? And is it just, and of course with morning sickness, and marijuana has been used for a long time medicinally with chemo patients who have completely lost their appetites, and they're getting down to virtually skin and bones, and doctors have always prescribed marijuana because it gets their appetite back, gets them beef back on their bones.
They're
so
also not trying to create another human. Like, that's where my issue lies. Like, fine if you are ill and not creating a human, but if it's going to impact somebody that's going to be joining society and needs to make great decisions, I just want to know that their mental capacity is not impacted by your choices during pregnancy.
Valid question. Valid observation.
And you could trace that all. I mean, there's many pregnant women, they won't have one bite of sushi because the mercury may be in some of the fish, or they won't even have tap water because maybe fluoride might be something that they think that there might be health impacts for a growing fetus. It goes on. I mean, you could go back to anything. It's just difficult because there's things that we perceive that are connected to ingesting something while you're pregnant. And there's things that there's just not a lot of data that says that there's any impact one way or the other. So it's very difficult. It comes down to your hunch, your gut. If I don't know enough, you can't positively say it won't hurt the baby.
So I won't do any of it.
Exactly.
Let's see what these people
I don't know
saying.
this for a fact. I would just say many women always err on the side of caution.
See, a lot of people in our comments, we hear you. We see these coming through. This is a talker. Joseph Burnett, he is with us and saying it's about the kids, and he's worried about kids accessing this weed or accessing the weed, and the potential for smoke to enter all of our lives, even though it's not supposed to be smoked in public. Now, that I didn't know.
Yeah, you're not supposed to do it in a public place.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So then you have, then unlike alcohol, where you can join in these establishments and drink together, will there eventually be establishments where you can smoke together?
Well, there's a no smoking in the state anyway, in bars and restaurants and all that. So
but will that
change?
Change?
No, I don't believe, because smoke is smoke, and people don't want to be in smoky areas no matter what it is. Now, the reason why are we even talking about this? The reason we're talking about this is because marijuana is already readily available in most states, especially in California, and it's been an underground industry that hasn't been taxed. So now that you get a hold of it and Uncle Sam gets a hold of it, now we're talking. This is what it's all about, is about Uncle Sam getting his piece of the pie.
But remember,
or you don't, that's the only reason it's being legalized, because sales are going crazy anyway under the table.
But it makes sense.
Why not get a piece of the pie? Let's legalize it.
I agree
I'm
with
here
that.
for it.
I agree with that. However, remember, this was something passed by the voters on a proposition, meaning that it supposedly came from the people. So I feel like it's an arrangement where the people have spoken out and they want something, and they don't mind that a portion of the proceeds will be going to benefit the state in a various list of things.
When you read the ballot measure and it says prop this, prop this, prop this, and then it says legalization of marijuana for recreational use, it goes fiscal impact on state.
Yeah.
And everybody looks at that and they go, are you kidding me? Billions of dollars?
Sweet.
This will keep my taxes down. It will bring in a lot of money to the state. I think I'm going to go yes on that because it helps me out.
Right.
So it's like all the other stuff, which is, Ariane's brought up, drinking while impaired. How do you and it's
That's
like,
what
and
people are
then
commenting on
pregnant
now.
women, and it's like, whoa, but there's billions coming in. Well, that's more important to me than the other side stuff. And
Marmar Gillihan says that, think if a politician or their families are killed by somebody because of a DUI because they were under the influence of marijuana. Say that happens. Do you think there will be change in the future? That's what we had with alcohol.
It
It's
didn't
the
change
same
anything
thing.
with
It doesn't
alcohol.
change anything.
Alcohol's your template where nothing's changed.
No.
And people are driving around and have been for years impaired with marijuana. It just wasn't legal. Now, the question is, how many more people will now try it, buy it, because now it's legal than before when it was illegal? But it was so easy to get it when it was illegal. I don't know. Sure, there's going to be a jump, but will it go from 20% to 80%? I doubt it. Because let's face it, somebody always knows somebody who knows somebody that could, quote, score you a bag if you want it. So, but now that it's going to be set up next to the Safeway or the Domino's, it's be like, you know what? I've never tried it before, and since it's legal, and we're already getting pizza tonight anyway.
I can't.
What do you say we get a couple? And it's marketed with like cookie dough and raspberry.
These comments are out of control right now.
I mean, it's like the one across the street here. You go in there, it's like being in a Starbucks. It's like every flavor of dope imaginable.
Well, that is scary though for the marketing side of things, because
To kids.
I remember when I was younger and Joe Camel got taken off of the shelves and marketing about tobacco was taken off. We're going to get there at some point. But what people are in our comments saying is there are a mix of opinions, but Tiffany Young says that she's very supportive of recreational and medicinal marijuana. It's made a huge impact on her life and her daughter's life. She was born with medical issues that greatly affected our lives, and as a result left her with uncontrollable anxiety. And as a result, she suffers from ODD. I don't know what ODD is. But she says that weed has helped tremendously in these symptoms.
I don't know that any of us are discussing or sweating medicinal, where you get a prescription. That's awesome that that's been available for her family. It's just that this is recreational, legal recreational is now a whole new dealio.
Okay, now think about this. You've been sitting in prison for the last 10 years.
Right.
You racked up a series of drug-related charges by buying, selling marijuana on a certain scale that's not legal. What do you think about all this? Do all those sentences get commuted? What happens with that?
Will.
And in the future, these prisons, they build these prisons with a certain population in mind that as the state grows in population, X percentages will commit crimes that will be severe enough to be in prison for a while. I mean, I think if you take marijuana off the table, that number has to change.
But you broke the law when it was a law. I mean, the fact that it's no longer a law now, but you broke the law when you knew it was a law and you broke it. Does that give you a free pass now?
I think that it does.
Really?
Especially, yes. I think one of the reasons, in addition to the financial gain from making marijuana legalized, is that we aren't going to have so many people in the judicial system or in the prison system that shouldn't be there. These are petty crimes, in my opinion. They're not killing people. They are providing now a substance that is legal, or they did provide a substance that is now legal. Why keep them in jail? Becca did a story, cannot pronounce her last name.
Habiger.
Yeah.
Becca did a story about 2 weeks ago saying that people who were put into prison having a certain amount of weed in their possession or selling a certain amount of weed will have their sentences commuted. And that is exciting to me because right now the prison population demographically does not represent the types of crimes that are most impacting to our communities. Do you know what I mean? Like the harsher crimes are less represented in prison than those who are selling weed.
Right.
And
Well, it's
doing
your violent
drugs.
and non-violent offenders. And I
Right,
think
and
what
so-
you're talking about are your non-violent, and now they're being released into a world where what they did before is no longer wrong or illegal. I'm just saying, for me, you draw the line. It's like you 3-4 years ago
Right.
broke a law knowingly and willingly and were sentenced within the jurisdictions of la-di-da. The fact that all of a sudden people go, whoa, I'm going to vote yes on this because billions of dollars. That doesn't mean the crime you committed 5 years ago was any less of a crime.
Let's say
you
you've
did
got,
it.
let's
But
say
you
you've
did
got a
your time.
cousin. Let's say you got a cousin who got caught up, bad situation, sold some weed, sitting
Right.
in prison for 5 to 10. Third year in, do you have some sympathy that hey, you know what? We're all out here smoking weed.
How much weed did
As
your
much as
cousin
you-
sell, though?
Oh,
I mean, I don't know that you. If you get busted
and
for
just
the first
record,
time
I do not
selling
have
weed,
I don't have any family members in jail for
yeah.
this.
What's his name?
But what I'm saying is, you know what I mean? Like, and yes,
I
as you're
get it, I
saying,
get
in
it.
an abstract, yes, of course. But we used to attach a personal story to it because they
Right.
all do. It becomes a little bit more different.
Well, if your guy on a
difficult.
first offense is doing 5 to 10 for selling weed, he had a bad lawyer.
So we have more comments on this.
Your
Okay.
cousin
It's
Willie.
all about the
Lavina
comments.
Salcedo says, you're gambling either way when you take medicine while pregnant. So if you're doing weed and it's not that much, what's it going to do?
When my wife was pregnant, both everything, Tylenol, ibuprofen, you're looking at each and everything.
Absolutely.
You know, just to try and figure out if,
It's worth it.
yeah, exactly.
We have another comment. You have to think twice. Come January 1st, next time somebody offers you a gummy bear lollipop or brownie when you're pregnant, because you don't know what's in it.
That's
Yeah,
true.
That's true.
That's an interesting comment.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things that I'm really happy about, I'm glad that the age is set pretty high at 21 because
Right.
I feel like there's these critical years when you're like 14 to 18, 19, 20, where you're really starting to make decisions for yourself.
Right.
And, you know, a lot of kids that age, they want to do the right thing, but the right thing is usually the hard thing to do. And, you know, sometimes they don't have a lot of help at home motivating them, or they're just internally, they just are not that type of person.
Right.
And they often get caught up. I mean, I feel like there's somewhat of a generation that's just caught up in video games and weed and
It's
that
true.
combination, and they just kind of checked out. And because I saw it in college firsthand, they go away from
then-
home, and then they're like, "Oh, video games are awesome. Oh, I can smoke some weed." And then basically they stopped going to class. They dropped out, and that was just kind of it.
But then don't you think that argues my point then that it should be introduced at a younger age? Because when you're getting to college and you have so many new things,
I don't know.
it's overwhelming.
It's-
It was
it's-
overwhelming for me to have to go to a class at 8 o'clock in the morning, even though you did that in high school. It's just committing to going there is a lot.
So what age do you think is okay for people to recreationally marijuana?
I think
If
that
he said 21, because that's the law, what do you think?
I'm saying you get to college at 17, 18, it should be 18 then.
But 21
You
is
have
the
2
legal
years.
drinking age. I think they
I think
want
that
this
should
to
be
be
lowered too, and that's a whole other conversation
Wow.
for me. But I go back to the idea that back in the day, if you were old enough to go and be drafted, you should be old enough to drink.
yeah.
And I feel the same way about marijuana.